What's going on, collectors? This is Uncanny Derek, and in this video I want to show you a couple books that I just received, and I completed a run of something, so stay tuned. And of course, if you like what you see, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe down below. So in this video, I completed a run of something, and I'm going to get to that shortly. But first, I'm going to show you another handful of books that I did receive recently, and they are kind of all over the place, so bear with me here. I picked up a Golden Age book here. This is something I've just had my eyes on for a little bit. The series, I've read Frederick Werdum's Seduction of the Innocent. And for those unfamiliar with that, he was a psychologist in the 30s to the 50s, maybe into the 60s as well. And he was the guy who essentially started the Senate hearings, or his work influenced the Senate hearings, which created the Comics Code of Authority, which is that little label you see on the top of all these comic books. And he was the guy that also started a whole slew of ideas, like, for example, Batman and Robin are a couple. He was the one that suggested that comic books are what's causing problems with youth. A lot of weird things that he explained in great detail in the book, all of it wrong. And he of course went back and eventually was like, yeah, it was wrong. But besides the point, I learned a lot through that book about other books, another series of books that influence his decisions. And so I became a little attached to some of the crime books that he spoke about. And while this book isn't mentioned specifically, this issue isn't mentioned specifically in Seduction of the Innocent, I became interested in the Crime Does Not Pay series. And these books, this is by Lev Gleason book. And this is the Canadian edition. It says it right there. If this was the U.S. edition, it would just say Lev Gleason production or something along the lines there instead of Canadian edition. And this series of books were crime stories, just explained in various. There's 3 stories in this book, and they were just short crime stories. But this book, while it is arguably targeted towards children in some regard, it is violent. People do get shot, people do get killed. There's blood in the book, but it's not as bad as when you get into like the horror stuff that shows up a little bit later. That definitely the Comics Code was like, oh, we want to focus on this stuff, but. Yeah, a lot of what was brought up in Seduction of the Innocent was in these crime books here. And so I found a copy of Crime Does Not Pay. This is issue number 73. And this is not that great of a copy. It's probably a 2 at most, like on the low end of a 1. The cover's still attached. It's just hanging on there. You can probably see the tearing on the spine there. It's all still attached. The spine's still intact, but it's just hanging in. And so you can just see right on the cover, for this being a Golden Age book, like there's shots being fired. Let it focus there. Shots being fired. You see the one guy on this side here. He is pulling the trigger and pointing at this guy's head right here. And it says click just above it. So he tried to shoot him, but it didn't work. So it's, a very interesting, violent book. And obviously this guy here is going to die on the cover because he's getting, he's getting forgotten by his buddies. And yeah, I think these books are really neat. They are such an interesting part of history, and I'm really excited to have this book as part of the collection. So that's not everything we're going to be talking about here today, though. The other book I just picked up, and this is a pretty much near mint condition version of this book. I have XMen number 130, but I never owned an issue of Dazzler number 1. And so this is the Dazzler's first run of her own comic book series. And this went on for quite a few issues, and there's not too much noticeable that happened, notable I should say, that happened in this series. I'm sure there's 1 or 2 things that were pretty big standouts that just not coming to mind right now. But this near mint copy of Dazzler is now in my possession. I've always enjoyed the cover of it, and yes, the Enchantress there, she is the main villain of this first issue here in the next few. So having somebody like the Enchantress going after Dazzler, it seems very perplexing, but hey, whatever, it sold books. So yeah, Dazzler number 1 there, so I can say I now have number 130 and number 1. But what run did I complete that I am very excited to share with you guys today? So, as you all know, I am trying to collect the entire series of Uncanny X-Men. That includes books like Giant Size X-Men and all the annuals. And while I still have to get Giant Size X-Men, and I still don't have all the issues of Uncanny X-Men, I did finally complete all the annuals. So I'm very happy about that. And the book that I still needed, that I can now cross off my list, is actually issue number 1. So there is an excellent copy of X-Men Annual number 1. And this book here was a reprint of issue 9 and issue 11. Issue 9 is where the X-Men fought the Avengers, obviously, as you can see by the cover. And issue 11 is the first appearance of the Stranger. And this book here, it actually presents beautifully. There's a couple little nicks along the cover here. You can see especially around Marvel Girl right there, and a little bit here. And there's a little bit of a nick in the back, but you know, you got the awesome date stamp. I always like books with date stamps. That just really shows the it's part of the history of this book, but just comic book collecting in general. But anyway, it actually, I think it is like a 6.0. Like it's a pretty clean looking book, maybe a 5.5 to 6. So this is the book. I now can say I have all of the X-Men annuals, which is awesome. I'm glad I have that now done. And because I only had 3 books to show that I just recently picked up, I'm just going to go through a few other of the annuals that I have that I find are of note to share. So just earlier this year, last year, I picked up X-Men King Size 2. And this one here was issue number 22 and 23 reprinted. So actually my issue 1 of X-Men Annual is a better quality copy than my X-Men Annual number 2. I mean, this still is a great presenting book. It's just the spine here. The annual books, you may notice obviously they have a much thicker spine. And like Giant Size X-Men is the same way. And this one here doesn't really show it. I noticed it more on the first one. I don't know if this will show nicely. But just right above the Marvel, if that focuses, you'll see there's a little bump there. And so most comic books, I don't want to show the next book yet, but most comic books, all comic books, they have the staples through the center. Now, annuals and giant size copies, because of the thickness of the book, those staples never went through the center. They actually went through the back. And so if I was to open this book up and you look inside the page there, you're going to see the little staples, actually. And, you know, to have a near mint copy of this book where that 9.9 giant size exists, which I don't think is a 9.9, but that's besides the point. You can see the little bumps there, and having giant size copies or annual books that have the little staple bumps, you want to make sure those are cleaned in order to get a high grade. So it is a little noticeable on this book, not so much on my X-Men Annual 2 here, but that's just a thing I wanted to share because that's not something that many collectors know about, that these annual books have little bumps in them due to the thickness of it. Then I also have this other book that is the first appearance of somebody, I don't know. This is X-Men Annual number 14. This is, depends on who you talk to, the first appearance of Gambit. And technically Gambit's first appearance is issue 266. Due to printing and logistical reasons, this book went to shelves first by like a week or two. So it actually predates 266, but like contextually, if you read the story, Gambit's just like hanging out in the background. And for anybody who didn't, well, 266 was no yet, you just be like, who is this guy? So like, yes, this is technically the first print appearance of Gambit. It's technically also not his first appearance because he doesn't actually appear until a couple weeks later properly in 266. But this is another book that, you know, it's a rarity. It's nice to have. And so I have 266 as well, and got this. So much like the Dazzlers, I got my double duo. And this book, I just always find it interesting because, you know, the X-Men 97 show was out, and if you watched that, spoiler alert, it was in episode 2, they had Executioner. And this book here is the first appearance of Executioner. And also this, I think Mastermind dies in this book too. But anyway, yeah, first appearance of Executioner. It's, again, he's not really that notable of a villain. Like, he was early 90s and then just kind of disappeared. I always remember seeing his action figures at like Toys R Us and just like tons of them never selling. It was funny. But yeah, that was this is annual number 17. And yeah, just neat book to have. And I do want to close out with this was my first annual, and I'm sure if you saw my why did I get into X-Men comics video, I talked about Joe Casey's run in the Poptopia chamber and all that. And I never knew what an annual was, but this was at my local convenience store, and this is technically this is the last annual of X-Men. They never did another one after this. This is annual number 25. They started calling it 2000 and 2001, but this is number 25. And I hated this book when it came out, solely because it was like way too avant-garde for me. It reads this way, so you do have to flip through it like this, and the artwork is so abstract in it. You know what? Let's show you. So this book here, again, super abstract. So hope this shows up okay. But there is the whole gang of who showed up. So this is, you know, in the early X-Men books they would say who is who. And so there's Iceman, there's Angel, Chamber, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, and Stacy X. So again, I can't even tell who it is. That's supposed to be Chamber. There's Stacy X. On the far side there, that's supposed to be Iceman. And the whole book, I'll just flip it around here, is done in very dark watercolors. And, you know, it is really cool looking art, but to my little teenage self, early teenage self, it was really tough to understand what was going on. I had a hard time picturing who everybody was because nothing was very obvious. There's Xavier there and somebody else, and there they are talking. It's just, the artwork's really cool, but it was just so hard to understand. And anyway, this book is important to me because it's my first annual, but what a tough book. So very interesting. So anyway, that's all I have for the video here today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Of course, if you liked what you see, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Leave comments down below. Yeah, don't forget to click some of these videos here if you want to check out some other stuff I've done. There's a little button. I don't know what side I'm going to put it on. It's one of these sides, but a button to hit subscribe. Do that. That'd be great. And see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.